Welcome, everyone, to Odds and Ends, Life, Entertainment, Theater, and the Arts. I am Andrew Joseph Kozlowski, and with me is my good friend, world-class musician, music producer, and my co-host, Mr. Cool himself, Mr. Clyde Ballard. Clyde, how are you today, buddy?
Good evening, sir.
I like that salute, man.
Hey.
What's happening?
Everything is good, man. I'm really up for this episode because Johnathan Lee Iverson is a good buddy. We toured together when he was a member of the Boys Choir of Harlem, and I was the bassist. So we traveled around the world performing on stages together. And I never dreamed that he would rise to be such a prominent figure. I mean, he's very special to the world and to American culture, but especially to people of color, because we've never had a person of color as the ringmaster in the greatest show on earth.
Well, folks, Johnathan Lee Iverson is an accomplished and history-making showman. I mean, there's no question about it. He's been privileged to covet stages and arenas all over the world. As a member of the Boys Choir of Harlem, he shared the spotlight with the likes of, listen to this group, LL Cool J, Spike Lee, Lena Horne, Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, Luciano Pavarotti, Roberta Flack, Placido Domingo, Tony Bennett, and a whole bunch of other luminaries in the world of entertainment. He kept company with statesmen such as the late South African President Nelson Mandela, Secretary of State General Colin Powell, and 4 U.S. presidents, including Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, and William Jefferson Clinton. But here's the thing that catches us most, I think. He, as the youngest and first black ringmaster of the iconic Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, and he served in that role until its closing in 2017, making him the last ringmaster in the 146-year history of the greatest show on earth. He's renowned for his powerful voice and superstar presence, as well as being named one of Barbara Walters' 10 most fascinating people. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's a little something to introduce you to our guest, Mr. Johnathan Lee Iverson.
Out of this world! There is no performing or entertainment entity like Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. Absolutely, it is a family business for me, without a shadow of a doubt. I'm the ringmaster. My wife is the production manager. My son actually is featured in the show. He plays a younger version of me in the show. And his sister has just been hired as his understudy. You wear your mic like that?
Yes.
You made it like that?
No,
or did the sound
I've
guy?
been asking for them to change it.
Did you talk to your mother?
No, I haven't.
Well, that's who you talk to. You know, she's production manager. And having your family with you is everything. I mean, the fact that I can make a living while having a life and do what I love with the very people I love and who I'm doing it for. I mean, that's everything.
Clyde, this guy is very special, so let's get him on right away.
Yes,
huh?
I can't
Ladies
wait.
and gentlemen, Mr. Johnathan Lee Iverson. There he is. Johnathan,
Hey.
Welcome to Odds and Ends Life Entertainment, Theater, and the Arts.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Well,
Glad
that's
you could
great.
make the time to spend some time with us, man. You know, many of those credits that Andrew had cited before we began, I was there with you because you and I performed the concert in Central Park in front of 700,000 people, the Pavarotti concert. I was there, and I performed at the White House, I think, 3 or 4 times with you as well while you were singing with the Boys Choir of Harlem.
Yeah, absolutely. But most of all, you gave me guitar lessons.
That's right.
I was trying to learn the guitar. You were kind enough to give me a couple of lessons.
Give me some pointers.
Man. Yeah,
So
we go back.
Are you still keeping your voice
memories.
together? Are you still singing anywhere?
Oh, absolutely. It's so funny. Obviously, with the current situation, live entertainment has been a bit funky.
Diminished.
But what's that?
Diminished.
Yeah. But, you don't stop. I mean, it's what we were taught, with the late, great Walter J. Turnbull, founder and director of the Boys Choir of Harlem. He always told us, you're athletes. So you have to always be on it. And I won't even lie about it. I mean, of course, you go through a little period of laziness due to the newness of your reality.
Mm-hmm.
But, I've been blessed to have been doing this for so long. And, I'm always singing every day in some way. My children, they muse over it. They're amused by it.
Right.
They actually appreciate my voice, but, it's like, do you have to sing everything? You have to sing everything. Come on, Dad. But
Now,
it's always there. It's always there. And, of course, it's discouraging to a degree not to be on the actual stage or in an arena or someplace. I mean, I actually recently had a gig. Actually, this wonderful lady, she hired me to basically serenade her husband on his birthday. So, that was a lot of fun. Just to get out there and do something in this world where I guess now we're so apprehensive when it comes to coming together. It was just great to be around people, great to share my talent. And, it is something that I take seriously. And, you just have to keep your chops up.
Well, I would say after performing with the greatest show on earth, that's a hard act to follow. I mean, what can you do that can ever rival that?
I tell you, that was my greatest fear. And I realized it would be a reality for me. Maybe I would say my second tour with the greatest show on earth. I realized it. And I remember when it happened. I was in the middle of a performance and it was a packed house. And, it's just.
Where were you? Do you remember where? Where were you?
I don't remember exactly. I may have been on the West Coast.
Okay.
And it was a packed house. And it just felt like I was in the middle of a fantasy. Because that's what it's like.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, your coworkers are 5-ton elephants, 600-pound tigers, and, glorious horses, and then, a bevy of beautiful bodies that can fly, they can do daring things. You're not going to get that anywhere else. And
that's right.
It gives you a broader appreciation of the performing arts. I mean, of course, I always still patronize the opera and musical theater and plays and things like that. I love live performance and concerts as well. We were fortunate traveling the way we were. We were able to see the different offerings around the country. I remember in like a 2-week span, more like inside a month. No, we got to see Prince, the late great Prince, twice. It was so funny, man, because I remember he was actually playing in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we were playing Knoxville. They have 2 arenas there. And it just got went through the show. Prince, he's across the street. And everybody freaked out. And then we found out there were some spaces for us to get there. You have never seen people exit out of buildings so quickly to run across the street to this other arena. That's just what happened.
Wow.
I mean, I dropped the note, the curtain closed, and we started booking it over there. And it was amazing. Then we found out he would be playing Memphis, Tennessee, right after a date we had there. And of course, I had to buy tickets there, and we went to see his. It was the musicology tour, and it was just wonderful. Just
did you meet
wonderful.
him? Did you meet him actually?
No, it's so incredible. I actually had an opportunity to meet him about a month before he passed on. I have a cousin of mine who was managing his late, wonderful DJ. She would do his Pam The Funkstress. That was her name. She's a West Coast legend. And she was doing his after parties, and my cousin managed her. And she had called me. They were at the Ritz. And she called me out of nowhere. I'm in New York, honey. Come on down here. Let me see if I can get you to meet Prince. I was like, yeah, I'm on my way. And, but it didn't work out. Like he loved to do those pop-ups and everything. And so she was going to try and get me in that way. But, I have an almost met him story.
I want to ask you a question.
Jonathan, Clyde, before we go on to other stuff that he's done, and there's so much.
There's so much.
We need to give the audience a little background of where he came from.
That would be good.
So right now you call Orlando, Florida home, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Could you maybe talk a little bit about your early childhood, where you were born, where you raised, and schooling and that sort of stuff, just so we can give the audience a little background of how maybe you got into where you are now?
Oh, absolutely. I grew up in the Big Apple, the city of cities, New York City, New York. And I grew up in New York City before Starbucks and Magic Johnson theaters and Disney. When Times Square was a red light district, and you had a parade going through Harlem, but you still loved it. I grew up there. Had a wonderful childhood, really. I grew up in an economically diverse neighborhood on Central Park West. I started with an urge to perform after seeing a feature of the Boys Choir of Harlem on a CBS special or something. And it really was born out of my longing to travel. I just always wanted to travel. So I lived in my head a lot. And, my big thing was WWF wrestling. Back then it was WWF.
Okay. And I had a relationship with those people.
Right. So I was like, oh man, I want to do that. I want to travel or something, And of course, growing up around Madison Square Garden, I went to the circus as well, Ringling Brothers. And these were always otherworldly things to me. They were just bigger than life. Being in Madison Square Garden was always a big deal. And seeing the Boys Choir of Harlem, I thought, oh, okay, there's my shot. Oh, those kids look like me.
You auditioned for the Boys Choir?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And was Clyde already there?
I don't know if Clyde was there because, see, when I came in, I was about 11 years old. And so all I was paying attention to was just trying to get in.
Yeah, I was there, man. I was already there. Okay. I spent like 17, 18 years there. So
yeah, well, he had to be there.
Yeah.
Well, see, but Clyde was playing with the performing choir. He was playing.
There was two different choirs, A and B, right?
Yep.
You had to work hard
when I first
to get
started,
into A.
Yeah, we had a training choir, we had a preparatory choir, we had the concert choir, and we had the performing choir. Oh, yeah. And so, I mean, it was really strenuous. It was the longest 18 months of my life.
Like basic training, huh?
Yeah, man. I thought I would never get chosen for anything. I quit every 2 days. My mother was like, nope, go back. No. Back when parents would weaponize no. And I'm telling parents out there, weaponize no. Do not accommodate your kids' mediocrity. Let them go through it. And I'm so glad she weaponized no because, I think about it now. I'm like, what if she just would have said, yeah, okay, we'll try something else. I would have been one of these bouncers. I'd have been bouncing from one interest to another.
Now, were you in the public school system while this was going on?
No, I was actually going to private school. I was going to, I went to a Christian academy when I was younger. And it wasn't too Christian, but, it wasn't public.
I see.
But I was, the boys choir was incredible because, my mother had her reasons because she was like, okay, I don't really want to pay for private school no more. So it kind of, when the boys choir, then they opened up, maybe a year into it, they opened up their own school. So I started to attend
Choir
there.
Academy of Harlem.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I was like the first class there. And so that was a great experience. I spent my middle school years really just all day at the Boys Choir of Harlem, soaking up all of that instruction and genius that was there, going through rejection after rejection. And it was so wonderful when I remember just the day, man, when I was finally chosen. And it was by happenstance. I was walking in the halls, and there was Walter J. Turnbull, who was massive to me at that time. He stops me in the hall with those big bear paws he had.
That's right.
And he goes, "I need you to go to Pittsburgh. Kelton Hanna got sick." And you'd have thought I hit the lottery. I was just so, I called my mother. I'm out of breath. I must have ran home. I went and packed. I remember packing like saltines in underwear. And I ran back up, got back uptown and got on the bus, and I was just grinning from ear to ear. And I was happy, I was 13 years old, and I was like, finally, I'm gonna show them I'm ready. I can't wait. I'm gonna show them I'm ready. We get to Pittsburgh, and I nearly faint on stage.
Really?
Yeah. It was a great lesson for me, and I realized then and there, process matters, and a great teacher really knows, really knows. And I was the butt of everybody's jokes the morning after, but it was all in good fun because we all heard the horror stories. Clyde, kids,
Sure.
Some would throw up, some would faint, because just to stand there in those robes, just to stand there for a good hour or so and just focus and just sing, that's work. A lot of people,
and it's hot with those lights on you too.
Yeah, those lights are hot. Mm-hmm. It takes work to sing the way we were trained, because you're singing with your whole body. And, a lot of people don't realize that about, the classically trained singer, opera singers. Those people are fit. It takes a lot of energy to do that when you're singing with your body. You're not using microphones necessarily. You're singing with your whole body. And so that takes a toll. And I learned really quick. But, after that, I think I missed one more trip they had. And then after that, man, I was rolling. That was my year. I was 13 years old. I was in 7th grade. It was the first time I left the country. I went to Japan. We went to Japan that year. It was 1989. Spent the summer in Japan. We happened into the great Placido Domingo. I will never forget the feeling of hearing a voice like that and hearing what I wanted to aspire to. It was just riveting. I mean, I remember we had an older gentleman in the choir, because sometimes they would hire older singers to buffer the tenor and bass section.
Ringers they were called.
Yeah. And it was Nathan, actually, who actually called me from the dressing room. He said, "Come here. I want you to hear what a real tenor sounds like." Because back then, Turnbull used to call me a baby tenor and buddy tenor. And I was 13. Of course you're a baby. I'm an embryo, really. And I go out there. I didn't know who Placido Domingo was. All I remember was the announcement. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, Ronald and Nancy Reagan's favorite tenor," because it was a friendship concert between Japan and the Reagans. And he comes out there, and I swear to you, like everything stopped and my whole body lit up. And I was like, that's it. That's who I am. That's what I want to do. And it changed everything for me. It put me on course. And it really has been an adventure ever since.
I want to say something to you, Jonathan. The Ringling Brothers Circus began in 1884 with 5 of the 7 brothers. Did you happen to know any of them? How did you get into the circus? Did you audition? Or did someone choose you?
No, I was basically plucked out of obscurity, so to speak. I was in the right place at the right time.
By whom?
Well, his name was Philip William McKinley. Philip McKinley is a wonderful theater director. He actually directed Hugh Jackman on Broadway to his first Tony Award for The Boy from Oz.
I saw that show. Great show.
Yeah. So Phil was also directing the Fireside Dinner Theater Christmas show. And the Fireside Dinner Theater is a beautiful, quaint theater, family owned, out in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. I was fresh out of college. I just graduated. And my plan was to raise money to venture off to Europe to study with a teacher I had met and I connected with, and we were going to live there, and we were going to just basically work. study, and I would do like light roles and stuff, but really, old school hands-on stuff. That was the plan. I happened into this audition for the Dinner Theater Christmas show. Phil McKinley was there. I did well. And I could tell he was a bit zealous about me being there. I didn't think anything of it, but in hindsight, I was like, okay, now I know. So I received this call later in the day from a representative from Feld Entertainment, and the person on the other line said, and we represent Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, and we'd like for you to audition for the role of ringmaster. Now, we want a singing ringmaster, so we want you to know that. So can you prepare a couple of songs, and we're going to videotape you for the producer. And mind you, you're going to be up against about 30 other candidates. And that's exactly what happened. That was round one.
What year was that, Jonathan?
1998.
98. So let me understand now. What college did you go to?
I went to the University of Hartford Hart School of Music.
Okay, and before that, high school was what? New York City?
Fiorello H. LaGuardia High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts. Yes.
Okay, all right. Don't want to lose sight. So we went from private school to LaGuardia to Hartford, and now then you were going to go to Europe, get yourself going, and you landed this thing. Okay, now let's talk about the audition.
Yeah, the audition was great. I of course I was offered the job for the Dinner Theater as well. So I went out to Wisconsin, and during my tenure there, I was informed that the vice president of talent and production from Ringling Brothers would be coming in, and I would audition for him. His name was Tim Holst, and this dude would literally scour the earth probably 4 times a year.
Wow.
Just looking for talent. That was his gig. And he had like a legendary story. He started out as a clown, then he became a ringmaster, and then he became a performance director, and they carved out this role for him, following others who had been in it as well. There was a great gentleman by the name of Trolley Rodin, of Swedish circus fame, Circus Rodin fame. So Tim followed in his footsteps, and what Tim would do is he literally would rack up sky miles going all over the world looking for talent. And so he happened to stop in exotic Wisconsin to see me. And it was great. It was a nice audition. It was very, I had a pianist or I think a track, I don't know. And I sang for him and I did the announcement, ladies and gentlemen, the whole bit. And we sat down, had a conversation, and the rest was history.
Wow. Did you really fully understand what it meant to be ringmaster for one of the most historical organizations, circus organizations ever? I mean, did you know
in the world.
At that time? Did you understand the what you were getting into with this?
Oh no, not at all, not at all. There was no way. There was no way to understand that.
Yeah, the position of ringmaster. My goodness,
I just knew it was a guy who dressed well and ran his mouth, but I didn't know the real seriousness of it. That you're looked at really as the authority figure.
Right.
The majesty of it is that nothing happens until you say so.
Right.
And the power of it is you're the one who all of these super bodies and brilliant minds depend when the fantasy goes awry. And so you just have to know how to think on your feet, which was a specialty.
You keep it together if something's off a little bit.
Knowing how to distract the audience, knowing how to improv and to cover space. And, you had to think, you had to do it in real time, no matter what was happening, from the most mundane to the near tragic. You have to keep, the whole idea is to keep the fantasy alive, no matter what.
So I have a question about that before you go on.
Sure.
Clyde, I was going to ask you this before, and I said, wait a minute, let me ask Jonathan. You're traveling all over the world with Ringling Brothers now. Eventually.
No, just all over the country.
All over the country. So you weren't really going all over. You weren't really going North America, were you?
No, all over North America, all over the United States.
So Mexico.
I did go to Mexico one season. We went to Mexico for about 5 weeks, and I did the show in Spanish.
That's what I was going to ask you. How did you handle the language situation if you were out of the United States?
It was an education, and it was interesting to learn. And I should have known instinctively, but no, I actually did know instinctively. And I'm glad I didn't fully depend on the company to do the work for me. They were very kind. They got me a tutor, a wonderful gentleman who himself, he's a musical theater artist, but he's also Colombian. And his Spanish is pristine. Here's the thing, though. We were going to Mexico. And so how they speak Spanish different. In Mexico is not how they speak it in Colombia.
That's right.
or in Cuba. Or in Spain. So, it was so funny. I just went to the Mexicans on my show and we started having conversations, and they would show me things, and they would correct certain words for me, or, suggest I take certain things out because I may mispronounce something, and a slight mispronunciation may mean something offensive. Mm-hmm. So even when I ventured to Mexico, right? I actually had to relearn the script. And so we had a wonderful lady there who actually, she was so patient with me, and she was so gracious. And really, literally during the show, she would be wherever I would exit or whatever, and she would, coach me on certain pronunciations. And it was just a great experience. And just being in Mexico, period, especially at that time where, Mexico was supposed to be, Armageddon. It wasn't. It was like any great city anywhere in the world. You just had to know where not to go at certain hours of the day.
Like any city.
Yeah. The people were very welcoming and very curious, of course, because I don't think they have 6'4" black men walking around all the time.
Right.
I took a lot of pictures. It was a lot of fun. To run into just different people. I'm a big boxing fan, so it was a treat for me. I went to visit the legendary Romanza gym. That's the gym that's headed by the legendary Nacho Beristain. I think he's still around. But he trained such great fighters like Juan, Manuel, Márquez. And I went to that gym, and I met some of the wonderful fighters, even this wonderful little kid who is also a musician. And he was taking his boxing lesson, and he had some lungs, man. He serenaded us, and it was just such a wonderful time. And I also learned, the difference between American food and actual clean food. Like you can literally eat to your heart's desire over there, and you don't have that heaviness. You don't have. I went to this beautiful restaurant, this wonderful family. They owned they owned about 4 different restaurants. Classic story. Started out with a taco stand, built it up, and had a restaurant. And it's a family-owned business. And he would not let us pay because we got him circus tickets. He was very nice. His family is beautiful, and they served us. And we were eating all night and drinking tequila, which is medicine. And I was like, man, I'm going to pay for this in the morning. I tell you, I woke up, I felt light, I felt great. And went on with my day. I did a lot of juicing out there. They had the farmers markets there, and I would get a lot of vegetables and fruits every day because, again, they don't have organic and non-organic, which is almost criminal in of itself. Right? It's just, look, you better eat that stuff that day. As fruit is, it's supposed to die like in a couple of days, not like 3 weeks. So I was juicing a lot, and I actually lost weight. I was eating like a stuffed pig and having too good of a time. And it was just a wonderful experience.
Now, let me ask you something also. I'm not trying to throw any mud in the game, but it was kind of known that Ringling Brothers didn't really hire blacks. Do you think that they hired you purposely because they were trying to reach a different market?
Yeah, I was about to ask that question. Do you think that this was a conscious decision to hire a young black man so that they could break this barrier?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I'll tell you why. We've had a fascinating history. The reality is there is no institution in the United States of America that isn't tainted with racism.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And that includes the circus. And even with that, strangely enough, the circus, in many respects, is probably the most progressive society there is compared to everybody else.
Dealing with freaks and oddities and people.
Dealing with just oddity, dealing with people in general. Now, obviously there's some ugliness there, with anything related to that. But we look back in circus history. There's a great musician, P.G. Lowery.
Yes, African American.
That's right.
Right.
And a
Who
lot of
brought
people,
ragtime and blues into the circus.
right.
Sure.
And it was because of the platform of the circus that such music gained popularity. And so many of these musicians were treated in a very iconic way. You fast forward up, my predecessors, the great King Charles Troupe, unicyclists, basketball players, a unique act that cannot be duplicated anywhere in the world because they don't know how to do it. These beautiful black young men from the South Bronx create this act on a whim. It started with this gentleman by the name of, good Lord, was James King was his name? Anyway, he just wanted a way to really help kids in the neighborhood. He used it as the carrot on the stick. And he taught his son first. He always had a love for the unicycle, never learned how to ride it himself. But he had this love from sneaking into a Ringling Brothers tenant show in Florida when he was a boy, back when it was segregated. And he kept that memory his whole life through I think he fought in the World War, what have you. Like, he went through a lot of stuff. And he came of age and he made it his mission. Well, I want to teach my son to ride the unicycle. So he taught him, but of course other kids get wind of that in the neighborhood. They want to learn too. So he used that as a way, a la Dr. Turnbull with music. He used that as a way of giving these kids structure. And what he ended up finding out was they were athletic geniuses among them. The way they actually came up with their act is the most odd thing ever. First, they were just these really good unicyclists. They're out there practicing like they always did, and somebody's playing basketball on the other side, and the ball rolls over, and the kid just swoops it up while he's on the unicycle, tosses the ball in. King Charles Troupe is born. And they figured, we have something here. And that's when that came to be. So they are the ones who really broke the barriers down for somebody like me. And this was back in 1968, 69, when the Feld family, Irvin Feld, took over ownership of Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. And so a lot of the racial changes you would see in the latter half really were birthed from Irvin Feld, who, if you look up Irvin Feld is one of the great kings of rock and roll. He was he was probably more important to the racial composition and exposure of rock music, probably more than Alan Freed.
Alan Freed. They also managed, I think, and handled Siegfried and Roy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, he was very progressive, very liberal. And his shows were, that he was the one who also brought over the great Gunther Gable Williams. Who was, I had the privilege of working with Gunther at post-retirement. And Gunther was still the god of the circus. And he was such a down-to-earth gentleman. He was just pure magic. He would stop everything. If you wanted an autograph or picture, he would literally stop cold and give it to you. Just a pure icon. Everything you would wish your favorite star to be, he was. He loved being an American citizen. He loved the whole idea of America. But he loved his animals above and beyond. And he was the one I learned from that's a gift. That's a real gift. I saw him rehearsing, and I don't have that inclination, but when you're around genius, you feel it. And okay, that person, I can't do that, but I know that's a genius. It's like when we would see Michael Jordan play basketball, or you would hear Pavarotti sing. You go, okay, that's it. I don't know how to do that, but I know what they're doing is special.
You know they're gifted.
And yeah, I would watch him rehearse and him practice with the animals, and it was like it was almost sacred. It was like this real communion he had with them that was beautiful. And I would talk to his family about it many times, and they would say everything revolved around that. Everything
Johnathan,
revolved.
a question. You brought up the animals.
Yes.
And in the latter years, there were people out there who felt that the animals were not being used properly or being abused by being in the circus.
Yes, sir.
Now, I never understood that, but then I always was open to the fact that, okay, I'm not around it. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I always was of the feeling that an animal gets into a routine and they really start to have an existence, a reason to live. They want to work. They enjoy working when they're trained properly. What did you see when you were there? Were you one who believed that the animals were treated fairly and well and loved and all that sort of stuff?
Well, that's because you have a good bit of common sense. I always reminded people, animals are very smart beings.
Yeah.
Especially elephants, the second smartest land mammal in the world. And lions and tigers aren't necessarily idiots. These are sentient beings. These are sensitive beings. These are intelligent beings. Even within the species, they have their own peculiar personalities. Each elephant didn't perform like the one that it wasn't a uniform thing. One of the great animal trainers we had in my latter years with the show, Alexander LACEY of the UK, who trained this beautiful lion and tiger act, he used to tell me all the time, he said, you may not notice it, but I don't always bring out my entire bevy of lions and tigers. Sometimes, I cut the number down because it depends on what they're feeling that day. What I know about animal trainers, having been around all of the best ones, is they are so vigilant and consistent. Every good trainer always told me the same thing. You start off with a shovel in your hand. What that meant is you start off learning how to care for them and groom them. And you earn the trust of that animal.
Right.
And you have to learn the language of that animal. Some animals, you have to have a posture of that's more aggressive because that's how they relate. Some animals
respect you. They respect you that way, right? You can't show fear.
Right. And this is what Alexander LACEY taught me. He said, I have to, it's psychological. He said, I'm a 180-pound man. He said, if my lion, who's like 700 pounds, realizes that I'm dead. He said, so I have to do things. I have to project myself as the king because that's what they understand.
Hi, I'm Alexander LACEY, the big cat trainer and presenter on Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Presents Out of This World. The show this year is very different to past shows. We have a storyline and it's all about good versus evil. In this show, I work with 14 lions and tigers, which is different to shows in the past. I work with 2 male lions, so my male lion, Masai, who's always been the star of the show, this year he has to share the spotlight with his nephew, King. And I also work with Mowgli, who takes a starring role in all of the other parts of the show. What I love about performing is actually being able to show off what my lions and tigers have achieved. We spend a long time with them, just getting to know their personalities and their individual characters and their capabilities. And once you find out what each individual cat is good at and what they like to do, that's what we present to the public. So I actually love watching my animals enjoy themselves and showing off in front of an audience.
Alexander LACEY, his relationship with those tigers and lions is just amazing. It's thrilling to watch. You can see how much they trust him and how much he trusts them. And that's why they're able to present such a wonderful partnership to all those who watch.
For me, what's most important when the families leave the show is that they've created a memory that they take home with them, and something they can talk about and cherish for, weeks and years to come.
But also, on the other hand, every day, because they don't have days off, every day, he was up at crack of dawn. He would check them. He would groom them. Masai was his name, was the star lion he had. He would be brushing his hair, brushing his mane before every show.
Wow.
When we talk about, and when we talk about their nourishment, one elephant would eat 200 pounds of food a day. Now we're buying locally.
Where do you get that from every day?
Markets. You get it from the local markets. We had a really hefty operation there. Same thing with the lions and tigers. They would get fresh meat from the butcher. The elephants would get their bread fresh from a baker.
People don't realize you guys were great for the local economy every time you came in.
Bingo.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
this is what people never understood.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and we're there for what, a week, 2 weeks, performing an average of 11 shows a week.
That's a lot of food.
That's a lot of food. That's a big spike in the economy, the local economy.
Clyde, did you hear what he just slipped in there? I used to complain when I had to do 8 shows a week off Broadway, right?
I heard that, yeah.
He had 11 shows a week.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Unbelievable when you think about it.
And the whole, the controversy over the animals really wasn't a modern phenomenon. It actually started in the days of
1920s.
Barnum. Yeah, but P.T. Barnum had to deal with it. And what was interesting was P.T. Barnum actually tried to coach. It was the founder of the ASPCA. And he was basically a trust fund baby who was bored. And he came from that elitist class. And if you notice, most of those people involved in those, that's what they are. And Barnum actually tried to educate him. He said, listen, I actually admire your intent. He said, but the problem is you're so arrogant, you don't know what you're talking about. Right. And you could actually be useful if you actually learned what we actually did. Most of our trainers trained our inspectors. Most of those inspectors don't know anything. They couldn't tell. They're like glorified dog walkers. They don't know anything. Most of our trainers would teach them what to look for. The ASPCA, literally, and you can look all this stuff up, it's verified. The ASPCA wrote on their own volition about Ringling Brothers' handling of elephants. They said that it is extremely humane and professional. They always would repeatedly say, we actually exceed the industry standard. Now, here's what's interesting, what the public doesn't know. We were always in court for anything. Like, you can take anybody to court for anything. A lot of these groups are so heavily funded, what they would do.
Well, PETA stayed on them a lot, right?
Yeah, but PETA is very, very slippery.
Okay.
Because, so it was like the Humane Society and the ASPCA, and they dragged out some former employee of ours who's there for all of an illustrious 2 years and claimed he had these stories. He was paid $190,000. We were in court for nearly 14 years to the point where the judge said this case should have never been brought. It was vexatious, groundless, and frivolous. That's what the judge said. You can look this up. Counter to that, we actually recouped over $25 million from the ASPCA and the Humane Society of the United States in a RICO suit.
A RICO
suit. Look it up.
A RICO suit?
Yeah. In a RICO suit.
Now, for those of you out there that don't know what RICO is the statute that the government created to help them go after mobsters and criminals, cartels and things like that, so that they could kind of play the game on an equal playing field, because if they were following the rules, it would be impossible to convict guys and girls like this.
Here's my thing. A lot of animal rights it's a hustle. Mm-hmm. It's a hustle, and it's a hustle for elitists. And it's tragic because the reality is there are a lot of horrible things that are going on that happen to animals, mostly with private owners mostly with people with so-called domesticated animals. I mean, the things that happen to dogs and cats every day in somebody's trailer somewhere or somebody's just regular home, it's obscene. Personally, I think the same standards should be applied to anybody who owns a living thing. There needs to be certain standards. I know what I witnessed, and I'm not saying that the circus industry was completely perfect. Listen, there's no industry that doesn't have its riffraffs and idiots and ne'er-do-wells. We had them. I didn't witness them at Ringling Brothers in the nearly 20 years I was there. My children would go into the stables and help feed the elephants and clean them. You know, if I was trusting my kids to that, and I'm a New Yorker, so, you know, I'm paranoid by nature. I mean, the most exotic thing I saw was a squirrel, you know, maybe a carriage horse. But the reality is, you know, I wouldn't put that kind of trust in those trainers to have my kids in there, you know, if I thought, you know, these animals felt threatened. I tell you, funny.
Some people felt it was like a slavery of nature.
No,
to have a lion that's used to running free in the jungle to now have to live in a cage 20 by 20, you know?
Well, I always tell people, what does that even mean? Like, I mean, how do you assess that? Like, you know, I love to answer this wonderful, her name is, oh goodness, what's the name of the circus? Rodin. Rodin is it? Diane Rodin. She gave the best answer. She said, why do you all hate animals so much? Like, why is it that everything, she said, every living thing has purpose. Why don't you want it to have a job? Like, I mean, all you have to do is watch them work. And this is not even on me. We literally had, there's a famous study done by a Dr. Ted Friend of Texas A&M. He's now retired. Animal scientist who literally went on the road with a circus, not us, but he went on the road with a circus and studied how animals behaved, what the protocols were. And he said in himself, he actually observed one elephant that wasn't allowed to go into the act because I think it may have had an injury or something. But he watched that elephant literally do its routine in the stable while it was going on in the arena or under the tent with the show he traveled with. In other words, these aren't unintelligent beings. They love the attention. Some love it more than others. I mean, and that's the thing. Each has their own personality. There were elephants.
Plus, you got to believe there has to be a connection between the animal and the trainer. And if there was abuse going on, there's no way an animal is going to.
You can't make an animal do that 500 times a year.
Yeah, it's impossible
like
in my mind.
On cue with deprivation and abuse.
Yeah, I think that's kind of crazy. That's not going to work. Well, listen, we're going to take a little break here.
Okay.
And we're going to come right back with Johnathan Lee Iverson. Well, Clyde, he's absolutely amazing. And, of course, we'll be going to part 2 next week about a wonderful interview that will go beyond his time at the circus. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we have him on the program.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, folks, stay advised of all the events by following the Josephine Foundation on our Facebook page and Instagram account. A big-time thanks to our special guest tonight, Johnathan Lee Iverson. On behalf of my co-host, Mr. Clyde Billard, our producer, Mr. Gio Vitozzi, and myself, peace, strength, and love until we see you next week on Odds and Ends Life Entertainment, Theater, and the Arts. Good night, everybody.
And stay bright.
Amen, brother.